stores. And second, service diversification. Previously, for stores have two business. First, sales of automobiles. Second, aftermarket. The sum of the two, the profit margin less the cost will be the profit margin. However, the margin has been declining faster than expected, but the aftermarket diversification has not been realized. So aftermarket increase is not as high expected. Therefore, diversification, for example, insurance, finance, extended warranty, and boutique services, which has reached the peak. 2.5% of the total value of the industry. If you do more, the consumers will go away. And second is the retrofitting of the vehicles, also very troublesome. So diversification has reached a stage where you want to go, but you don't know how to go. But actually, consumption demand has been leading. Consumers are taking the lead. Consumers now want very good configurations. They also want to have customized models, sports type, 70 inches, 19 inches of hubs, and some want to have loans, zero down payment, and insurance. And for example, they want to buy insurance from you, the dealer, and so long as there is a car accident, they will just drop the car with you and then go away and then pick up the car again after you have repaired them. So taken as a whole, this industry is at the threshold of a big transformation or revolution. As I've mentioned, the 4S store only model is no longer sustainable for the development of this industry. And now look at the average sales of 4S stores. I mean, the bottom ones from 12.44 million to the more than 8 million. A lot of 4S stores have been suffering from losses. A lot of people have been washed out.
On the other hand, we see diversification of customers, and I have lots of data here. I won't read line by line, and the users have a different demands for aftermarket. For example, auto body cosmetics, and also roadside assistance, and also short distance tourism by driving, self-driving, and 4S is organizing the outskirts tours. And they are attracting lots of drivers, owners of private cars. So they are providing more value-added services, like insurance transactions of the second-hand vehicles, telematic service, and so on. So. But can 4S store satisfy all these kind of demands? No. And for logistics, these can translate into opportunities. We all have different kinds of needs from customers. Logistic companies should also consider diversification of your services. And for the industry to develop, you need internal factors and external factors, and that is factors on the part of customers. And these combined will lead the industry to develop. This is a necessary trend. And next part, I'll be talking about the Changjiu Investment Company. Some of you are familiar with the company. Some of you are even our partners. So I'll be talking about our company. Our Changjiu Group was established in 1992, and we started with logistics. And now our business covers automobile logistics and financial services, auto finance, and sales and so on. And we got four lines of businesses. So one is auto sales, and as to our distributors ranked number 13 in our capability, and we are strategic partners of BMW and Volkswagen and so on. And for auto finance, we provide financial services for the owners. We uh, we are we are have partnered up with different 4S stores, and also we do some revamping as well for automobiles. And let's continue to the following slides. I like to omit this slide. These are some prizes we have received, and I cannot control my presentation flow. I'm sorry. And in auto finance, we are the number one. Let me talking about the Changzhou automobile development track records, and I'll say that our development also shows the crude mode of development of the auto industry in China. And we have a very sporadic distribution. We do dealership in different brands. We do not have a BMW, but we do not have a Bosch, but we have all the other brands. And so the dealership in different brands also is very dispersed. We even do we do deals in trucks, and but now we are more focused on several brands, including Land Rover, Toyota, and so. But we want to come up with a model which is more diversified, and auto club, and also the trust business, the custodian the business, and so on. And in coming up with a diversified model, what should we do? We believe by looking into the OEMs and financial institutions and other parties. So we are changing the partnership between us from OEM perspective. And once a distribution group want to get into a partnership with OEM was not interested, and because OEMs were more powerful than distributors. But now we see the other way around. We see almost all the mainstream brands are signing agreements with distributors, with dealership network, so that they can achieve a win-win situation. Toyota, for example, approached us last month. The Toyota said, besides the distribution network, what else can we do together? And also, we see other kinds of alliances. As professionals, you may know, this industry has got very high moral hazards, and we also see high costs of different kinds. Moral hazards is a high risk for this industry, and now when the group companies tend to adopt standardized procurement and supply, and also according to the China's association, the China Automobile Dealers Association, they believe that different dealers and the OEMs will combine together more closely, and dealers and distributors are also getting into alliances, and therefore we see OEMs and financial institutions and auto parts and logistics are getting into a close knit alliances. Next slide. To summarize, I believe the auto industry is being diversified. There are got three directions. I like to take my business towards this main direction. One is that we see that we see the diversification with a single focus, and we have different entities, and for as stores, for example, want to introduce more diversified services, including insurance. And 2 years ago, the CIRC came up with a directive, and if as a 4S store was not allowed to become a broker of insurance, so insurance was taken away from the 4S from distributors, but 35% of profits was from the derivative services, including insurance services. But this insurance service would be taken away, or insurance business would. But another door was opened by the CIRC that large-scale companies can set up branches to sell insurance policies. And for us, this is good news because we can gain more capability. But for smaller dealers, they do not like this. Some small dealers would be squeezed in the future. So this kind of the actual diversification means that big players would add more businesses to diversify their risks, and when cannot sell whole vehicles very well, we can provide other services. And also we see a new trend of alliance between upstream and downstream, including components supply, logistic services, and spare parts makers. We are very much interested in this kind of alliances, so that we can combine into a chain and instead of silos. And thirdly, we want to get aligned with the common objectives, even though we may be from different industries. And I said that no matter how big I grow, I have no capability in actuary, and I do not have a license to sell licenses. Also, as an insurer, you cannot repair vehicles. You do not have the capability. You do not want to make this kind of investment. But I have customers, and I can leverage my customers. I can have my partners to utilize the customers. For example, Volkswagen and JD.com, and also tour agencies. We can get into a partnership in organizing tours for owners of vehicles. So we want to set up this kind of alliance between different sectors so that we can enrich our services. And for us, For example, we have second-hand transactions, insurance, cosmetics, and painting, and telematics, and except for insurance, you can use a courier service. All the other services have to utilize logistic companies. So I believe for us to develop, we need the alliance between logistics, information, and so we. I believe that we have big potentials to partner up with logistic companies, and once we provide the financial services only in settlement services, but now we are expanding our financial services, including leasing, and by utilizing auto clubs. Together with banks, we are introducing more financial services. So this kind of a new financial flow has got a better coverage. In the future, the material, finance, and information flows will get better combined and better and I talked about alliance between different sectors, so I will omit this slide. And the next one, and still next, and still next. This slide, as I mentioned, the OEMs and distributors and 4S stores and users and logistics and aftermarket service providers, financial institutions. We believe we have done some exploration regarding the partnership among all the players. And for example, our Changzhou Logistics, that's our long-standing business, and our Changzhou Auto business, and we are setting up our information platform, and we are providing more financial services, and we have other businesses like revamping, and so for China, in China, if you want to grow big, from logistics to distribution to logistics to aftermarket, we needed to take into consideration the whole picture. Otherwise, we would be eliminated. That's my presentation. I hope that I did not disrupt your dozing off. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yupeng. Again, giving us a great overview on the service part side, particularly from a dealer's perspective, and highlighting some of the opportunities that are out there for the logistics service providers. And next up, to give the perspective from the logistics service provider, I'd like to welcome to the stage Mark Ellis, the Global Industry Director for Automotive from Geodis Wilson. Thank you.
I'm sad to say that Louis and I have known each other for so long that many of you were probably children when we started out in this industry. And in all that time, he's still an Arsenal fan. I've not yet been able to convert him to do anything more sensible. Okay, my first venture into automotive, like most people, was when I got my first car. At that time, the UK had an owned automotive industry. We actually owned some manufacturers. And then there was investment that came into the UK from manufacturers from North America and from Europe. And then we started to get some investment from Asia. In the first days, it was, of course, from Japan. And then after that, Korea, South Korea. And more latterly, some of our wonderful companies in the UK have now been bought by Indian and Chinese companies to develop them and take them on. And it's good for us because actually you're buying some very historic brands, which is of great importance to the UK. It's actually very strange that the UK actually produces more cars now than it ever did, even though none of them are actually owned by us. So we kind of we make them, we sell them, and we send the profits overseas. So That's something we maybe need to look at. Okay, I love Jessie's presentation, and when can Chinese car owners expect world-class aftermarket service? And I didn't look at her when she said it, because I think she was looking at thinking about the 3PLs and the logistics providers. And so I was making sure I didn't look at her in case she meant me. So, but we had, I actually think it's a great question. And particularly because in China, she mentioned about dog years and everything happening in 1 year that normally takes 7. Yeah? So I was listening. Can I have some sweets? And I think there's a lot of things about that which makes China quite fortunate, because what's happening now is that you're able to copy what is a developed cut and paste solution in some areas from some of the manufacturers. However, it's also not so fortunate, because some of these manufacturers, they come and they have a copy-paste solution which they send out as a form of a tender for aftermarket, and they ask people like me and our other friends in this room to price it, and then they don't really ask for the innovation that the industry needs, because what is missing a little is that China is actually a unique market. Its geography, its infrastructure, the service levels, and everything that's happening here in such a short time. A copy-paste solution won't work to deliver world-class. So I think they'll get a world-class infrastructure around some of the plants, and I think that they need to sort of be, working in partnership with one or a variety of providers to provide them with some more. Okay, sorry. What I'm actually going to do now is I think that our translators are very overworked, probably underpaid, and so I'm going to bring my own, and I'm going to give you guys a little rest. So Sean, would you come up and join me? And we'll be giving this presentation. Slides will be both in English and Mandarin. So the good news for you guys is you only get to hear me half of the time. So thanks, Sean. The question of this event is velocity and volume, and the challenge of keeping up with demand. The conference theme: increasing complexity of current markets that require smart supply chain providers. We would like to think that we are such a provider in China, in Asia Pacific, and globally. We have a broad offering of products, solutions, a strong track record in automotive. It's actually globally our second biggest sector. And it also gives, we have a complete flexibility. So when I talked before about the OEMs giving us a solution that they want us to price, we are actually creative and flexible enough, hopefully, to change their minds and to do something a little different.
首先我自我介绍一下，我叫沈浩洋，英文名叫 Sean， 我来自乔达，是负责亚太区的汽车物流业务的拓展。先说明一下，我站到台上来不仅仅是，应该说不是为 Mark 来做翻译的。其实我觉得我们两个站在一起有点像说相声的，他比较胖，我比较瘦；他比较高，我比较矮一些。开玩笑。我们两个是希望用不同的语言来诠释我们现在乔达在整个行业的一个发展，在汽车售后市场的一个理解，以及我们认为在中国汽车售后市场应该要去做哪些事情，我们要准备哪些事情。那这页的那个内容，我们迎合今年大会的一个主题：速度加容量。刚才 Jessie 和那个岳总都提到了，就是整个的售后的市场就发展非常快，改变非常的多。容量已经，刚才 Mark 也说了，它来自于日不落帝国曾经的这个工业的帝国，全世界最先进的地方。但是现在我们中国在汽车的生产量上面已经达到了全世界的第1位。所以我觉得今年的汽车物流的主题用这样的一个名词来概括非常的好。那么以及是如何应对需求带来的新的挑战。那接下来我们就想说的就是说，因为这个市场不断的发展，快速的发展，不断的变化，那需要的是一个更聪明的，其实我们英文用的是一个 smart 的物流供应商。这也就是说，不一定是最大的，或者是 最强的，而是要更灵活机动的，这是我们的理解，因为这个市场不停地在变化。那综合讲一下我们乔达在整个中国以及亚太的业务的3大特点。第一个，我们的确有非常广泛的网络以及全方面的服务。在汽车行业里面，我们拥有非常丰富的经验，在 free forwarding、进口、出口、buyer consolidation、入场物流、线边物流、售后，全都有非常丰富的经验以及非常棒的 showcase 在中国以及整个亚太区。最后，我们想说的，我们不是最强的，但是我们拥有非常柔性化的管理，我们的 flexibility 做得非常的好。
Okay, next couple of slides. Sorry, my voice is going. The next couple of slides is basically just some facts and figures about us. I talk pretty quickly about this, but Geodis is an organization, we're owned at the top by the French Railways, which makes us owned by the French government, I guess, which means that the Department of Transport in France is our boss. I never get to meet him. I'm sure some of my colleagues do, but it's never to me. But our global revenues are in excess of 30 billion euros, which makes us a very big organization. It puts us certainly well into the top 10 in terms of global providers. Much of it is in Europe, but there's a significant investment in Asia-Pac and particularly in China. We're in over 120 countries globally, and so we kind of think we've got most of the world covered, certainly where there is a significant need for our main industry sectors, of which automotive is one of the leaders.
这2页是介绍我们乔达集团的一个综合的一个情况，以及全球的一个网络。那这里面给大家一个比较关键的一些数据。第一个就是我们整个法铁的年收入是338亿欧元。我们乔达作为法铁的运输物流事业部，我们达到了95亿欧元的一个 turnover， 这是在2012年的一个数据。那这是我们讲的，我们认为就是说，在对于物流企业来讲，我们比较核心的一块资源是什么？这就是我们的网络。我们全球拥有7700名员工，在120个国家拥有240个分支机构、分公司以及办公室。这是我们讲乔达，尤其是国际货运这一块。那关于上海，我可以给到大家的数据是，我们1978年我们就进入中国，我们已经有36年的历史。我们在中国的人数已经多达了638名员工，这是最近的数据。接着我们在中国有21个办公office， 10个仓库，仓库的面积多达10万平方米。
Okay, within automotive, we offer an end-to-end solution, so we can start at the beginning and with all of the services that's around the collection of the raw material, the parts. We can offer in-transit services, anything that moves, all the documentation, supporting, and then the final mile distribution, whether it be to the customer, the individual unit customer, or to distribution centers, and indeed operation of all of the centers within. We can also offer that. And we kind of like to provide our customers with what we would call a portal, where all of the services that they can monitor to their heart's content, and the level of interaction the customers have on an availability of data on this is really quite superb. And it's have a look at the video on our stand, and you'll actually see some of this in action. But it really is down to it's tailor-made to the needs of the customer, because everything we have is available through this.
这边的话，这4页 slides 是主要介绍了我们在从起运地到目的地的一些能提供的物流服务，以及我们的供应链管理系统所能提供的一些增值服务。对于大家来讲，我相信这些都已经是老生常谈了。Origin 在起运地的话，收货及 buyer consolidation。一些零部件的拣货包装，海空运这一块，保险包括 以及在目的港的一些清关咨询工作、财务、增值税，现在在中国的一些新的一些条例的颁布，包括整个的一个配送的网络，全都是通过我们乔达自己来运营的。那同时我们想提一下，就是说乔达在供应链管理这块，我们有自己的一套非常完善的系统，从门到门，从您的对于 OEM 来讲，从供应商到最后的主机厂，如果讲 Aftersales 的话，就从 Tier 1 Supplier 到OEM 的主机厂的自己的仓库到 4S 店整个的配送网络，我们通过我们的 SCM 系统完全都能够覆盖，而且有一个就是名词叫过程驱动式，这个就 Event Driven 这样的一个警示系统，会告诉你在每一个节点、每一个 activity 上面，我们都有自己的一个警示系统。就这个是我认为在供应链管理上是非常重要的一个环节，因为大家为什么用系统？系统就是能去纠正人工所容易犯下的错误，可以自动的去提醒到我们在整个供应链里面出现非常警报的时候，它可以自动发出类似的信息。
We wanted to address and deal with some of the questions regarding the supply of after-sales and service parts. I'm very pleased to say that on everything that's been said by the first two presenters, I think we're in agreement. I think that the numbers that we're using are all pretty much in line. That's good. We've all done the same research. And the problem is it a big issue today? As aftermarket reaches maturity in China, then no, clearly it's a long way from that. What I wanted to ask actually was, well, what's the challenges? If you actually looked at this a number of years ago, the challenges to providing good service was seen as a business absolutely devoted to service will have only one worry about profits, because they will be embarrassingly large. Is that true? Oh, you broke it.
就马克刚才谈到了，就是说在汽车物流的售后服务以及配件供应上面，容易面临的哪些挑战？这里有一句话叫“一个完全专注于提升服务的企业，只会担心利润问题，因为利润会大的让人都有点不好意思”。其实这句话可以用一个本土，就是我们 local， 就是中国的谚语的意思，就是说你只要专注你的服务，其实剩下的问题就是让你数钱数到手抽筋。
Actually, it was said by a figurehead, a global leader, one of the first gods of our industry. It was said by Henry Ford of the Ford Corporation, and that's what he truly believed, that if he offered a world-class service, then he was going to make so much money from his service to the industry that they would have so much profit that the biggest problem he would have was actually counting the money. So.
这句话其实是这个汽车工业的这个奠基人亨利·福特他说的这句话。因为在那个时代，你只要提供最好的服务，真的会让你数钱数到手抽筋。
Actually, clearly it's not true.
但是我们认为在彼时彼刻应该是正确的，但是在此时此刻，尤其在中国这个 booming 这个快速发展的一个市场里面，我们认为这句话有待商榷。
In fact, in honesty, in this area of business, it tends to be, for ourselves as logistics service providers, it tends to be embarrassingly low in terms of the profitability. So what are the real challenges and considerations? What we think is the considerations, as some of my colleagues on the panel have been talking of earlier. It's going to be with regard to the increased number of sales is, of course, going to put more strain on an aftermarket. There's a greater number of, not just of vehicles, but of manufacturers producing over here, with a greater number of models. Also, the more reliable that the vehicle is, the older it's going to be, the longer it'll stay on the road, and the more an aftermarket is needed. Supplier base is, of course, a challenge because they're regionally diverse and globally diverse as well. So this is what we identify with our partners where we work with OEMs and tier ones in China. This has been proven to be the challenges that they're facing today.
这边的话，我们想和大家分享一下，我们认为在售后服务以及配件供应上面会，其实不这边的话可能 wording 有点问题，是主要面临的一些挑战是什么？一方面，整个中国市场销量增加，这个毋庸置疑，制造商数量增加，越来越多的 OEM 进入了中国，他们愿意投入更多的车型，车子的品质更加的好了。那就说明原来你的车可能开4、5年，现在可以开7、8年，甚至更长的时间。那保有量肯定会增加，以及区域化的供应，以及全球化的供应。
The consideration to looking after this is, of course, through supply chain management from point of origin to point of consumption, but also forecasting and having a look at what's going to be the needs and development of this market in the future. One of my questions would be on this. Has this come as a surprise in what's going to be needed and required over in China as the volumes that's being produced over here come as a surprise? Well, in almost a mirror of the data that was put up earlier, this was actually produced. Get back. Whoops, sorry. Never mind. Can you go back for me? Okay. This, for some reason, has not managed to come up on the screen. But what we actually showed on here was that the production, and it's this very small graph that's managed to put itself in the corner up here. This is technology at its best, because when I passed this to automotive logistics, this was huge and it was here. But what I can tell you is this was a forecast of the number of vehicles that would be produced in China and how many of the head of population would have for 2014. But it was produced 6 years ago, this information. And they were 0.3 out in terms of the production. But in terms of the number of people per heads, they said 80 to 85, and as my friend said earlier, it was 83, so they got that spot on. And this has been information that's been around and in the public domain now for 6 years. So.
这边呢，可能有一些老生常谈，我们再次的就是说提醒到大家，就是这张表格可能做的时间会有点长啊。当时是10年的，在中国汽车每1000人的一个普及率是41，那么在20年的话，这个数字将会达到158辆。那么同比其他发达国家，法国的话在09年就是598辆，美国是819辆。那么我们想说明的是，中国的车子肯定会越来越多。那 ，maybe， 所以就说明我们必须去重视在中国汽车这个售后服务的一个开发。那么再回到前面一页，就是说怎么去配合好我们售后服务在中国的一个繁荣昌盛，我们的物流怎么跟上去？首先，供应链管理，Mark刚才提到了，供应链管理之前更多的是应用在入场物流上面，因为入场物流可能会更加的复杂一点。但是随着在中国售后市场更加的复杂了，所以供应链管理我们必须要投入到整个汽车售后物流的这样的一个市场里面，因为它能更加有效的整合供应商到 OE 到 4S 店整个的配送、仓储、订单管理。那么这边可以，我希望能跟大家分享一个也就是昨天在报纸上看到的一个关于零整比的这样的一个新闻。这个说明是什么？零整比，简单的跟大家介绍一下，就是零部件购买的成本，就是一辆车把它拆散，变成了零部件的价格和这个整车销售的价格它的一个比率。在中国 最高的一个价格，最高的比率应该是1200%，是某进口车的。那么大多数的合资车和进口车这个比例都非常高，在400%左右。本土品牌超过刚才是合资车和进口车超过了400%、500%，接着本土品牌会相对低一些。但是在欧洲的一些成熟市场，零整比肯定是在300%以内的。那就说明什么呢？第一个，政府和这个行业已经更加重视汽车行业，更加重视汽车售后市场了。他们已经发觉在汽车售后市场上面，可能存在一些行业垄断的现象。那么作为汽车物流供应商，在我平时的一些接触到的物流项目里面，我能看到2件事情。第一个，为什么 4S 店卖的你去修车要花那么多钱？因为你的零部件是从主 OE 这边供应过来的，他们的价格更高。但是在 Jessie 刚才的 presentation 里面，我们已经能看到中国的汽配市场蓬勃发展，所以很多在座的我相信应该也有类似于买玻璃水肯定不会再到 4S 店去买了，他们可能会走汽配市场或者超市。那就说明什么？汽配市场很多的零部件其实是 Tier 1直接供过来的。这个在我们最近的这个业务里面，我们一个 global 的全球的大客户，他们在去年开始进军中国的，他是 Tier 1 supplier， 他去年开始进入了中国的售后市场，而且去年的一个销售结果远远超出他们的预期，在今年他们把 budget 翻了1倍，超过了去年的一个实际的达到的一个销售额。那这是一方面。还有一方面，我们有没有想过，经常会买到一件东西，甚至包括自己的售后的配件，特别是进口车，往往它是 made in China 的，但是它是 ship from Europe, ship from America， 那就说明，可能由于 OE 它有种种的 regulation， 它有自己的一些规定，这些东西必须要先从中国运到欧洲，运到海外去，但是你这个配件再从海外运回来。那这也是我们一个全球的汽车的大客户，他最近正在进行的一项招标。那么他们会在上海的自贸区开设一个售后的 cross dock RDC。那我觉得这是一个非常明智的一个做法。自贸区它完成了你在贸易上面的一个买卖关系，货物从中国实际卖到了国外，但是货物没有离开中国，真正的成本节省下来了。我相信最后得到益处的应该也是消费者，同时也能提升它在整个售后市场上的一个竞争力。我觉得这就是因为中国的市场售后市场不断的在发展。所以，对于 OE 来说也好，对于 Tier 1的这些供应商来讲也好，他们的这些销售手段，整个供应链的一个手段都会进行相应的调整。那么这个时候，作为物流供应商，我们要进行相应的配合。
Okay. I think we now need to wrap up and to thank you for your attention. It was us and the few questions that you will have that is going to be keeping you from your caffeine, and I'm sure after this afternoon session, which followed lunch, you're going to need your caffeine. So I thank you for listening. I thank nobody for snoring, and any questions, I'm sure Louis will be facilitating that now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark and Sean from Geodis. We've just got a little bit of time for some questions. We've overrun, but if you want to give you the opportunity to ask some questions, if you have a question, please raise your hand, wait for the microphone so we can get the translation. Say your name and your company name, and then of course ask the question. So I don't know if anybody wants to ask the question or kick off the questions for this afternoon. Don't forget there's some chocolates available if the questions are to Jessie or maybe to anyone in the panel. But I don't know if anyone wants to ask the first question. No? Okay. A question from me really to Mr. Yue Peng. Just a little bit more about your involvement as Beijing or as Changzhou Logistics as well. How much of the logistics for your dealerships, for the service parts, can you do or do you do in-house as Changzhou Logistics, or do you outsource a lot of your logistics for your service parts for your dealerships?
请问您是指整车还
Are you
是？
talking about finished vehicles or parts and components or both?
In this instance, really the service parts, just the parts.
实际上备件这部分物流在我们自己内部做的比例不多啊。
In-house logistics for service parts, the percentage is very low. Because the core business of our company is finished vehicles logistics, and for the parts and components logistics, we rely on our suppliers. So our in-house logistics for service parts, the percentage is quite low.
And to Mark, as Geodis, you operate in both production logistics, inbound logistics, and service parts logistics. Can you know, what are the key differences?
That's the $1 million question. I think if I may, it used to be recognized and said that in the automotive industry, it led the world in terms of logistics. It was called the rocket science of logistics. Well, you know, the kind of rocket science is you put a lot of fuel into a tin can, you set fire to it, and you let it reach up into the sky. It's the processes, it's the support, it's the technology behind it that makes all of that work. I guess what's been happening more now is that even within automotive, it used to be seen that the aftermarket was the dirty end of the business, I would guess. I think it was the end of the business that the OEMs weren't as interested in, or indeed the original part manufacturers from the tier ones. But now of course it's been seen as being in the mature markets, it's 60-70% of their profits. So as there's been more focus on that, then there's been a lot more focus on getting the distribution of it right. Because if your car breaks down and you don't have the right parts in store from the manufacturer you want, you need your car back. You're gonna go to to get a substitute part manufactured by someone else, and so it becomes necessary to make sure that the people manufacturing these parts always have their equipment in there, and so they very much so are dependent on as was said before as a theme, on a world-class service, and so it has got now where the service level of aftermarket is increasing to the same degree as it did some years earlier within the inbound and sequencing side.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. An opportunity for one more question, if there is one. Okay, otherwise I think Mark was right. Maybe it's time to have a break. So I'd like to thank the panel for their great contribution so far. Thank you. And if you'd like to join us for our coffee break hosted by Jeff Coe, after this session we will all be coming back into this room again for one main session which will be talking about the development of logistics service providers. So we'll see you back at 4 o'clock. Thank you.